Good evening and welcome to Northbeat. I'm Shannon Scott. Canada's federal court has struck down a decision by Ottawa to hand over fishing licenses off Nunavut's coast to non-Inuit operations. Nunavut Tungavik Incorporated and the Kikitani Inuit Association call it a significant victory. The CBC's Samuel Watt has more.
At issue, fishing off the east of Baffin Island. In 2021, then Fisheries and Oceans Minister Bernadette Jordan reissued fishing licences there for Greenland halibut and shrimp. They went up for grabs when Clearwater Foods was sold to a coalition of Mi'kmaq First Nations, which owns 50% of the southern-based company. Nunavut Inuit could have had the opportunity to acquire those licences, but that didn't happen. NTI and QIA took the government to court, arguing the minister's decision goes against Article 15 of the Nunavut Agreement. That promises Nunavut Inuit special consideration for marine resources in their adjacent waters. In a ruling on April 26, Justice Paul Favell said that special consideration didn't happen when issuing the licences. In a release, QIA says licences have primarily benefited southern-based economies despite the terms of the Nunavut Agreement. Current fishing licences will remain until the Minister for Fisheries and Oceans gives their response. Samuel Watt, CBC News, Iqaluit.
Some scary moments for the people aboard a Kudluk aviation flight headed from Chesterfield Inlet to Rankin Inlet, Nunavut this morning. The plane went down about 9 kilometres short of the runway. The company says there were 3 people on board. All of them walked away from the crash. Rankin Inlet Mayor Harry Tatungi says he believes it's been at least 20 years since a plane went down near Rankin.
I'm glad they're okay. I'm glad everybody sounds like they're okay, and just wondering how they're going to get that plane out of where it is right now. We'll see how they do that. I guess that'll be interesting.
No word yet on what caused the plane to go down. The Transportation Safety Board says it's still gathering information. Meanwhile, an Air France flight heading to Seattle was diverted to Iqaluit after a burning smell was identified on board. The plane, a Boeing 787-900 carrying 272 passengers and crew, landed normally in the capital, according to a written statement to Radio-Canada. The airline says people disembarked while crews performed technical checks of the aircraft. An Air France plane is now on its way from Montreal to pick up the stranded passengers. They will fly to New York, where arrangements will then be made to bring them to Seattle. Search and rescue teams in Cambridge Bay, Nunavut, have called off the search for a missing traveler. It all started on April 27th after 2 men were reported missing. They were traveling from Kuloktuk. Ground search and rescue teams found one of the men last Wednesday, and he is said to be in good health. But on Sunday, Nunavut Emergency Management called off the search for the other man. Local RCMP will now liaise with the community in regards to the missing traveler, according to a statement from the Nunavut government. The North Slave region of the NWT has recorded its first fire of the season, and it's burning near Detta. NWT Fire says it started from a campfire that was abandoned over the winter. The department says there have also been recent reports of abandoned campfires at the Yellowknife River and calls that, quote, extremely irresponsible. The Territorial's Fire Mitigation and Protection Manager, Mike Westwick, has previously told CBC the number 1 way fires start in May is from abandoned campfires. Now, officials are especially worried right now because the risk of fires is high in many communities. Do not let the ice on the rivers and lakes fool you. Fire danger is forecast to be high to extreme in the Decho and South Slave regions for the rest of the week. Well, many people in the north are very familiar with that sound. That's what happens when the National Alert Ready system sends out a message in an emergency. The system will be tested tomorrow on cell phones, TVs, and radios. The test will happen at 1:55 p.m. Eastern, 11:55 a.m. Mountain, and 10:55 a.m. Yukon time. That alert was used multiple times last year when community after community had to evacuate because the NWT had encroaching wildfires. We are, in fact, just 1 week away from the anniversary of the NWT's first wildfire evacuation of 2023. On May 14th, people in the Katlodeche First Nation were told to leave and head for Hay River. To mark the beginning of what was to become an NWT summer for the history books, Northbeat will be running a special episode next week where we will look back at what happened, but also forward to this year and the ongoing recovery efforts. Ahead of that special, CBC Northbeat host Megan Roberts is traveling through the South Slave region, visiting many of the communities hit by evacuations last year. Tonight, she's in Fort Smith and she joins us live. Megan, where in Fort Smith have we found you tonight?
Around Fort Smith. There's been a lot of preparation work going into fire season, and you can see around me these big piles of dirt and earth. There's debris that's happening, and as well, if you just look over my shoulder a bit more, there's a huge long line of trees that have been cut down in preparation for this particular fire break, which was pointed out to us on a tour that we got from a Métis elder. This is one of many that we saw. There were some along the highway, and we actually saw some heavy machinery along the highway as well, moving things, getting things ready. So there's a lot of prep work underway right now to try to make sure that the community is safe in this other fire season that is expected to unfortunately be intense again, Shannon.
Megan, we didn't have your microphone at the top there, so you are at a fire break. I just want to be sure that people hear the information that you had shared with us. So you mentioned you've met a Métis elder. Who else have you met along the way?
So we met some researchers this morning as well that are looking at garter snakes, and they're looking to see how the wildfires are affecting potentially those snakes. That's a story we're going to bring you next week, which I'm really excited to share. I'll also talk about the Métis elder that we met, Ken Hudson. He is from Fort Smith. He knows a lot of this area very well. He's a hunter. He took us in and around town, and he also took us to his cabin outside, just outside of Fort Smith. This is a cabin of extremes in a way. So in May of 2020, there was a flood. The cabin is on the Salt River. It's actually built quite high up, and the river came all the way up to the cabin. It went up about 13 inches is what I think he said. Last year, he thought for a time, him and his wife, that the cabin had been lost to wildfires. He told me that they had kind of resigned themselves to the fact that they thought they lost their cabin. And when they finally were able to go out there, it was okay. So there's actually now a sign hanging at the front of the cabin entrance with the gate saying thank you to the firefighters who helped save cabin. This cabin was saved by firefighters. He thinks that the fire got within about 40 feet of the cabin. So while we were down there and he was showing us this in this kind of scarred, burnt landscape around, we also went to the Salt River. Of course, there are drought conditions right now, and the river is incredibly low. Let's listen to him describe it.
We're looking at low water levels. In 2020, the cabin behind you flooded from this river here, and it flooded 13 inches into the cabin. So this is like, I don't know, 20 some feet lower than that year. Normally this water would be right down by the hay there. So, you know, I don't know where all the water went, but well, normally that would be just the top of that island where the little kind of grass is there, and there'd be a channel right through here, open. And that's how low it is. It's lower than it would be in the fall, any fall that I've been here.
So a pretty remarkable sight, seeing the river that low. We know that we're in a multi-year drought situation. We did get a little bit of rain today, on and off. It's still sprinkling, which is always a welcome sight, but unfortunately it is forecast for precipitation over the summer to be below average. So much so that there's a total fire ban actually in place right now for Fort Smith because it's just still really dry, Shannon.
Yeah, we had a little bit of that rain here in Yellowknife today as well, Megan. Just enough that you could feel the humidity and the moisture in the air. It was quite nice. It was a nice experience to be able to feel that and smell even just that little bit of rain. So you're in Fort Smith today. What's next for you? Where are you headed after Fort Smith?
So we will hit the road tomorrow. We're going to go to Hay River and the Katlodeche First Nation. These are, of course, two communities that were hit very hard last year. 2 evacuations for the communities, one where they went up to Yellowknife and the other where they couldn't and they went down to Alberta. So we're going to go there. We're going to see how the landscape has changed. The drive down from Yellowknife was quite profound. Of course, I left Yellowknife as well. You and I left together, actually, and we saw the burn along Enterprise, but I hadn't been along Hay River and over to Fort Smith, and it was quite sad to see how many pockets of burn there were along many, many different areas. It was a sad theme in the drive, was these huge areas of burn. You could just see how many different areas were affected by the fires last year. So tomorrow we'll go into Hay River and KFN to see the towns themselves and see what it looks like and talk to people about what last year was looking like and also what they're doing this year with this possibly intense fire season we're hearing upcoming, and just see how they're preparing and how they're doing with another year of fires or floods. There's communities that have been hit really hard there, so it's going to be interesting to talk to them and hear what they have to say.
Communities hit hard and a landscape forever changed as well, for sure. Megan, thank you so much. We will check in with you again tomorrow. Safe drives to Hay River. That's the CBC's Megan Roberts reporting to us live tonight in Fort Smith. Well, a lesson many people in the NWT learned during fire season last year was to be prepared. And it's a message fire officials have been pushing this year as well. But what exactly should go in an emergency bag? The CBC's Madeline Smith explains.
With more extreme weather threatening communities, prompting emergency alerts and evacuations, people are wondering whether they'd be ready to leave.
We know it's not going to be great this summer. We live pretty far south, so we've thought about it and thought of mental checklists of, oh yeah, if we're leaving the house, we need these things, but haven't really put a pack together.
Recently, we've had to deal with a lot of fires around our home. I live in the county, so I have a whole bag ready to go with extra clothes, photo albums, anything that's really important to me, just ready to go in case we need to evacuate.
Thousands of people across Alberta found themselves in that position during the intense wildfire season of 2023. Wildfire evacuation orders meant some couldn't go back home for weeks or even months. Others didn't have a place to return to afterwards.
And I think it scared a lot of people. And when we see that piece and the impacts to the other communities, we start to recognize that could be us or somebody that we know, a loved one, a friend, a family. So I think people are taking those additional steps now and being proactive and being prepared, and that's what we recommend.
So if you don't have a plan and a bag of essentials ready to go just in case, now's a good time to put it together. Your emergency kit should have a few basics. First up, water and food. Think about packing 6 to 12 water bottles per person and non-perishables like granola bars and dried fruit. Don't forget food for your pets in case you're stuck on the road for a while. You should also make sure you have your cell phone and the charger that goes with it, along with an extra supply of any medications and toiletries you need. It's also a good idea to grab a blanket, a flashlight, and some emergency cash.
It's all packed in a knapsack, sitting basically right by the front door. So if something happened, if we got the word that we had to bug out pretty quick, that we just grab that and away we go.
Put your important documents together ahead of time too, like insurance and ID. Whether you make hard copies, put them in an online file, or even on a flash drive. And experts say you should make a plan with your family before an emergency happens.
And what do you need for 1 day, 2 days, 5 days? And I think that's where you have to start thinking ahead. And what we have is people think that it's never going to happen to them. And that's probably the biggest detriment we see, is that having that mindset has to change so that we actually are prepared.
The full kit of emergency essentials will look a bit different for everybody. But before you have to get out on short notice, it's a good time to ask yourself, would you be ready? Madeline Smith, CBC News, Edmonton.
Well, check this out. This is the MV Lafferty ferry going into the water at the Liard River crossing today. That's the ferry you take to drive into Fort Simpson. According to the NWT's highway conditions map, the ferry isn't open for business yet, but it's likely not far off. The Territorial government says the 15-year average opening date for this crossing is May 13th. Canada Post may have to soon update some addresses in Inuvik NWT because a Crescent in town could be getting a new name. It's an effort towards reconciliation and to reclaim history. The CBC's Jenna Delavich reports.
Rayon Crescent is a street in Inuvik. It is named after Father Max Rayon, a Catholic priest. He worked at the residential school in town for over 2 decades. But long before a residential school was built and priests were in town, the area was known for something else. Anna Pingo is part of the naming committee. She says she spoke to elders to hear the history.
Before anything was built on that land, there was an abundance of blueberries.
The name for blueberry in Gwich'in is Jacques, which is what the committee is proposing to be the new name for the street. The mayor of Inuvik says he is in favor of the renaming and calls it long overdue. Residents have a week to share their thoughts on the name, with a public hearing scheduled in Inuvik next week. Jenna Delavich, CBC News, Yellowknife.
Hi, I'm Abel.
I often forget to mention that he's an amputee because Abel will try any activity he can.
My helps me with basically everything.
He doesn't see what he can't do, he sees what he can do.
Yeah, this is helping.
The War Amps has just given him the ability to do all the activities every kid can do.
When you donate to the War Amps, you help kids like me. Thank you.
Where do you see yourself in 10 years?
Owning an NHL team.
Penguins had us review your offer, and it looks good.
Wow. Get me on the phone with Cops Coliseum. Tell them I want to buy it.
Anna walks in down the Wiseland, redirected, scores!
Rookie of the Year. The 16-year-old phenom led the Medicine Hat Tigers in scoring with 97 points in just 61 games. The team's website says McKenna was also the league's Player of the Month in January and was 12th overall in league scoring. McKenna says it's a true honor to win the award. The young Yukon star is eligible for the NHL draft in 2026. Well, the naming of MVPs and the Stanley Cup finals that are underway, all of that means that ice hockey season is quickly coming to an end. But in Yellowknife, people are still playing hockey, just at the bottom of a pool. The CBC's Luke Carroll had a chance to strap on some fins and join a game of underwater hockey.
Ready, steady, go!
So quite different from a hockey stick. So I think a lot of people are surprised when they hear underwater hockey and see how itty bitty it is. I was in Guelph doing my undergraduate and there was a club called the Guelph Flounders, and it was the most bizarre thing I'd ever heard of. So I joined and tried it and I just loved it. I've always enjoyed swimming and being in the water. That's kind of what I love about up here, all the lakes in the summertime. And so here was a sport that let me feel like a mermaid and swim really fast with the fins on.
I got into the sport because I got invited by a friend, and I like hockey, I like swimming, so why not? Just kind of mixed the two and sounded like fun.
This is the underwater hockey.
And I started underwater hockey when I was 6 years old, when a lifeguard recuperate me on the bottom of the pool because I jumped too fast without knowing how to swim. And instead of giving me trouble, he says, hey, you are good to stay on the bottom of the pool. You should to come to water hockey. When you look at that, it's look like intense, but when we start, everybody start at their pace. There's a training. We have some exercise to make people comfortable with the gear and, building the strategy. Yeah, it's something that everybody is capable to do. If you're capable to swim, you can do play.
A Cree wrestler who lives in Vancouver is getting ready for the biggest match of her life in Paris. Justina Distasio is a member of the Norway House Cree Nation, and she's headed to the Olympics this summer. It's been a long, hard road for her to get to this point. CBC Indigenous reporter Jackie McKay caught up with Distasio at a practice in Burnaby, BC.
You just come in and you show up and you give it your all. That way, no matter what happens in August, there's nothing you could have done better.
Can you just introduce why we're talking to you and say your First Nation for me?
I am the 76 kilogram rep for Team Canada for wrestling this summer in the Olympic Games, and I'm a member of Norway House Cree Nation. It seems awesome right now, I'm going to the Olympics, but if you follow my story, it's like this, and I think the most important part is that I keep coming back even when it's not awesome. I didn't know how badly I wanted to be an Olympian and make it to the Olympics until that opportunity was almost taken away. It's taken 2 Olympic cycles, but finally we're almost there.
Now that you've qualified for the Olympics, what's the goal?
I want to win the Olympics. It's important to have that goal in mind every day, and when training gets hard or when you're tired or whatever, I just say to myself, I'll do anything to win the Olympics, and it's almost like an extra push.
Well, how do we get more Indigenous wrestlers to the Olympics and sports at that level?
Indigenous communities, sometimes they're more rural communities, so all you really need is a partner. As much as it's just fun, play wrestle with people, to get it to the point where all these kids can learn and come and build confidence. If they have a coach that can lead them, I think that's a big part of the process. If you're an Indigenous kid, if you're not an Indigenous kid, if you're a boy or a girl, whatever your sport you're joining, sports are really, really hard, so don't think you only have to love it because you're winning. And even if you're not winning at the beginning, stick with it. I was winning at the beginning, but then I was not, and if I'd quit, I never would have been here. So find something you like and find a reason to fall in love with it besides winning.
A Nunavik teen says it's surreal to think her class's work is being showcased in Quebec's Provincial Art Museum. 25 students from Igor Civic School in Puvernuktu have produced a series of photos, paintings, and videos. They call the exhibition Taraktutik Taima, which means mirror and this is enough. 17-year-old Connie Iktukalak says the work is a cry for action against climate change.
There's not much places to talk about climate change in our little communities in Nunavik. It's still a part of Quebec-ish, so we're not really on the spotlight much. And I'm really happy that I got to talk about it, somebody from our community.
The group's work won the Quebec government's Essor Recognition Award. The exhibition is on display at the Musée National des Beaux-Arts de Québec until June 2nd. Well, Skills Canada NWT held its Territorial competition in Yellowknife today. Youth from all over the territory are going toe-to-toe, showcasing their abilities, challenging their limits, and competing for top honors in multiple skilled trades. We stopped by the multiplex to check out all the action.
We have our annual Skills Territorial competition. It's the first one back in 5 years at the multiplex. It's been at the school last year at St. Pat's and Sir John, and this year we're bringing it back.
This one's a little more special because this is kind of the format that we introduced in 2018 and 2019 to get everything underneath one roof, all the competition categories, all the career expo booths.
This year we have kids from Inuvik, Wati, Yellowknife, lots of local kids.
These are the parking brake cables, so once we have it all set up, we can have a functioning parking brake. I've always done automotive or small engine or something like that with my father, so it was something natural that I liked going into. And when I heard about skills, it was kind of a no-brainer, kind of something to try.
They judge you off of how clean your area is, the framing, like just pretty much like everything that a normal employer would judge you on.
I'm gonna have to support this with some extra.
So this year we're really excited to have a mobile robotics competition on display, automobile technology to carpentry taking place here, photography. So there's a lot of competitions going on. In conjunction with that, we have our Career Expo, of course, so a lot of local organizations and businesses to promote their different activities.
I've been making movies for a long time. Fun little skits and short films that we usually make, just filming on our phones. So being able to use more gear like lights and cameras is definitely a learning process.
I remember when I first started, I was really nervous to join, but it's so much fun. And don't put too much pressure on yourself. The point is just to have fun, learn your new skills, meet other people who are interested in the same things you are, and it's a lot of fun.
So this event's always growing, it's always changing, always making some new introductions. So each year it's a little bit different, a little more special.
Well, that is Northbeat for tonight. For news anytime, you can always visit our website, cbc.ca/north. Thank you so much for watching. I'm Shannon Scott. NHL playoffs are next, and we will be on early again tomorrow at 7 p.m. Eastern, 5 p.m. Mountain, and 4 p.m. Yukon time. See you then. Have a great night.
Scare me.
Look out! Ain't nobody gonna stop me. We have a new world record.
Oh my God.
We're a team. We fight the best we can.
Are ghosts real? No.
Yes. And I'm here to prove that ghosts are in fact real.
Make your spirit known.
Spoiler alert, they're not. Don't go in there. Are you the killer?
some really crazy things have been happening.
This isn't even funny anymore.
It's not fake, guys. It's not fake. Not haunted.
What? Ghosting. Watch free on CBC Gem. Q with Tom Power. Available now on CBC Listen or wherever you get your podcasts.